Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
And we're talking about Greedy Kingdoms by AEG in their Big in Japan line. Greedy Kingdoms is a really interesting dueling game where we're both trying to collect resources, but we both have the exact same hand of cards, and we're both putting down cards and flipping them up at the same time, and if you played the same card that I played, I don't get to gain all of the benefits of that card. So there's a lot of mind games going on between you and the other person you're sort of dueling with at the table.
It has a really interesting upgrading mechanics. We all start with identical decks, and they each have different characters. So, we're trying to guess, if you're playing defensive, you're trying to guess what the offensive person is going to play, and the offensive person is trying to, guess what the defensive person thinks they're going to play so they can play something a little bit different. So it gets really interesting there, but then you can also upgrade the cards in your deck. And so they still become the upgraded version of the burglar can still be blocked by the base burglar because there's only one of each upgrade. So if I get an upgrade, you can't get it. But the fact that it's blind, because obviously some of the upgrades are just better than others. Like the Emperor, upgrading the King to the Emperor, and just if you can play that card, you can automatically score one of the kingdoms, the royal palaces, the cards that help you win the game. So obviously that is a super powerful card, but there's just a deck of one of each upgrade card, and when you pay to upgrade, you just top deck it. So you don't know what you're getting, but once you get it, it is common knowledge. Like you say, okay, I upgraded this card, this is what it does, and all the base cards have what the upgraded card is on them. So it's really easy to know exactly what he has, but that just adds a really unique mechanic to it.
I think when you say that there's some better than others in that upgrade deck, it's really just that the King to the Emperor is arguably the only one that's better than the other ones if you top deck it. Now, we actually went through and counted the swing, how many more resources you get for, because some of them have a cost, some have the same cost and a reduced cost, and most of them gave you a 2 resource swing when you upgraded it. The Emperor essentially gave you a 3 resource swing, but because it's so powerful, I think it's one of those cards that once somebody top decks it, and again, I have to put my King out, so now the King is not in my deck, the Emperor is. It's sort of a thing where when you know the game, you know that, okay, well, he has the Emperor. I'm probably just going to have to play my
your king.
My King every single turn, that he would be able to afford the Emperor. Now, there's another caveat to that.
Then also, as a defensive player, that means that if he knows I'm going to do that, then he has a card that can get through every time, because if I'm playing my King every turn, he just knows I'm never going to play my Emperor. But the fact that I own the Emperor means that another one of my cards is going to get through because he's going to have to play his King every turn just in case I can play the Emperor.
But if your opponent knows that that we know.
Another one of the little things that can kind of trip me up with the whole defensive thing is that, at first I was looking at okay, he has these resources, so he can only play these cards, because some of the cards have resources that you have to spend to trigger them. So it's almost like battling in Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. Where we each have identical defensive decks, and you only have these resources, so you can only afford these cards. So now instead of, is it 11 cards? Instead of all the cards in my hand,
9.
say, it's 9. So you can only play these 4 or 5. So that helps you figure out where it goes. However, we later on in the game realize that you can pay cards cost with other heroes triggered that turn. So if I can play a card that gets me leaves and this card costs leaves, I can, as long as they both go through, I can activate this card to get the leaves and then spend them to activate this card to get me something even better. So that is a little bit harder to wrap your head around, but you're also kind of risking things a little bit there, because if I block the first card, then I'm essentially blocking both cards, because now you can't trigger either one of them.
And I think that aspect of it is one of the things that make this game just better the more you play it. The more me and this other guy play it, as long as you and I have played this game a bunch, we're going to be we're both good at it. You know what I mean? Because the fact that you can get the resources that you need to pay for the other card Sure, but you can still math it out. It's just something you have to think longer about and try and figure out. But you could still be like, well, he's probably going to pay one of these. There's only, 2 or 3 cards that would give you the necessary resources to trigger another card. It's not like every single card gives you resources, which is good because there's the 4 different resources and they're distributed in such a way that it's hard to just be like, well, any card he plays, if I mess up and he gets 1 card through, he's gonna get a good resource. It's like, no, coins are probably the most abundant, but like the stars are pretty limited. So, if I make a mistake, it's not like, oh, well, he's just gonna get a star now.
Yeah. And that knowing the game is important because knowing, like, stars, you can spend stars to buy some of these other upgrade cards out there that are like one-time use or permanent abilities. But you really have to be careful with those because stars are so valuable. Like in the first game we played, I kind of, screwed myself because I was spending more stars than I probably should have so that I was never able to actually buy one of the royal palaces because I never had enough stars. But there's also cards that you can buy out there that, like, the card that lets you get a star every single turn can be, like, super powerful. So you have to be really careful and, like, try to block them from getting the resources to get, like, those cards.
At Gen Con 2018, we did an interview with Todd Rowland from AEG for Greedy Kingdom. So we actually have that on our channel. But it's one of the games that when I was doing an interview for, I actually got the most interested in. Like, I guess in terms of small box games or some of the bigger ones, I was... I couldn't wrap my head around it in that one interview. But with this, like, I feel like we got all the rules, really, that we needed from that one, 2-minute interview that we did. So the fact that it's so easy to be taught and so, just straightforward of just you pick it and you play it. And if it wasn't blocked, you get it. But there's so much, first of all, the mind games between 2 players, right? The fact of well, he thinks this, then he thinks that I'm going to put this, so I'm not going to put that, especially the thief where I can take from them. So I'm like, ooh, he just got exactly enough resources to get, or, he's 1 away from getting a royal palace. So I should play my thief. But he's going to know that I'm going to play my thief. It's that kind of thing that is, so that it provides so much game in such a little box.
I do think that there's always a need for more 2-player games because it's one of the few things like how big is your game group? Oh, okay, well our game group is 5, so it's really important to hit 5-player games, or our game group is really 3 people, so what games play well at 3 where some games play better at 4 or 5 and 3 is just kind of okay. But regardless of that, you always, or almost always, are going to have a time where there's only 2 of you, whether you're waiting for someone to show up, or someone can't make it, or you're just grabbing lunch with a buddy or whatever. 2-player games are one of those things that I think every shelf should have a bunch of them because you want to have variety. You don't want to be just stuck playing the same, I guess we're playing Keyforge again.
There is a strange lack in the industry for quick 2-player games that are really deep in strategy but that don't have a lot of rules. When I think of 2-player games, it's either an LCG, like Netrunner or Thrones or something that have a lot of rules, or or Star Realms, which is good. There are a lot of good 2-player deck builders, but that list is getting pretty short even as I'm talking, because otherwise you have to go to really, really, really lightweight games. This is a quick, easy-to-learn game, but that's a heavier 2-player game, if that makes sense.
There is a house rule that we really like to play with. So the rules, and then confirmed on Board Game Geek, is that you can spend 2 of any resources to upgrade one of the cards in your hero deck. And we like to play with 2 of the same resource, which is actually what Todd Rowland said during our Gen Con interview. And that makes it so it's a lot harder to upgrade that deck because otherwise we just found that the first couple of turns was just all right, I'm going to upgrade, you're going to upgrade, I'm going to upgrade, you're going to upgrade. And no one really did anything until that deck was pretty much gone because having those upgraded cards is so powerful. So if you're going to, it's almost like you could have just shuffled those up and dealt them out to each of us. And that was how we started the game, which could be fun as well. I don't know. But we personally really like playing with 2 of the same resources to upgrade a hero.
Could just be a translation issue. Pays any 2 resource tokens of their choice to the bank that could have been, any 2 of one resource.
Choose a resource
choose a
and pay 2 of
resource
them.
Could be either way, that's the way we like to play it. So I don't know if I said it enough, but I really liked Greedy Kingdoms. It was actually a little bit. Now we've been going through a little bit of this. We never thought we would have liked it, but we like it. We dismissed it because of the theme, but I don't really much care for this. The Japanese animation, like, I'm a nerd in every respect. I have comic books. I guess I don't play video games much, but, board games, movies, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff. But I never got into anime or manga. And I don't know, I've got a buddy, Mike, who is trying to convince me to watch some of those. So if you have any you want to recommend, I think I'm going to start watching them to try and get into them. Put them in the comments down below. But that's the only part of this game that I don't really like. Maybe in a year or two, I'll start getting into it and I'll like the art. But it's still the nerd culture area that I never really got into. So there's still a little bit of distance for me with that. But that's pretty much like the only complaint I have. I mean, I guess if you're playing the game with somebody new, you played it a whole bunch of that new guy, you're teaching it to them, you might have a little bit of an advantage because you know some of the cards, you just know more things. If it's a mind gamey game and you have objectively more information, sure. But those are the only complaints I really have about it. I had a lot of fun with this game.
As far as the artwork goes, I actually didn't realize until like almost the end of our first game that it even was anime styled. Like we were playing it, and I was looking at the card, I'm like, oh, those weird eyes, that's definitely anime. But it's so subtle that we played games before that are heavier anime themed, and it was like a turnoff in the game.
Tragedy Looper.
I haven't played that one, but
that wasn't you?
No, that wasn't me.
Jared?
Nope.
Maybe it was Aaron? Okay.
Maybe it was Aaron. Maybe I played it. I don't know. There have been games we've played that the anime theme was so strong that it was actually like a deterrent for us. But this one, I'm not crazy about it. It is subtle enough, and I honestly don't notice it unless I'm looking for it. But all in all, I also had a really fun time with this game. I think it's going to be a great one just to it's a great 2-player game, and that's, like I said, there's a place for it all the time. This one, because it plays so fast, because it's simple, because there's not a lot of setup to it, I think it's just going to see a lot of time on the table.
Well, if any of that sounds interesting to you, I highly, highly recommend you click the purchase link in the description box down below. Everybody needs a good 2-player game on their shelf that's not just Netrunner. But we'll put Netrunner down there too.
And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Boom.